Verboort, and I'm a solutions specialist here at M2 Technologies. I see some familiar names in the panel there for the attendees. Welcome everyone. Good to almost see you again. Let's go ahead and get started. My PowerPoint slides running effectively here. So just a little background information on M2 Technologies if you're not familiar with us. Our business is focused on manufacturing technology and not so much with regards to other disciplines in industry. So we've got the ability here to bring our knowledge to bear. And that knowledge is manufacturing specific. So as we know, there's various industries available in the marketplace today. And some organizations tend to broadly support all those industries. We do some of that. We certainly have that aspect to us in our partnership with Microdesk, who handles architectural engineering and construction information or industries. But we are solely focused on manufacturing at M2. So we feel that benefits you, our customers, significantly, and just in the fact that the people that you're working with and talking to when you're working with us at M2 are industry specific knowledgeable, and most of us have spent many years, even decades of our lives in the manufacturing environment. We bring that knowledge to bear on your issues. We are a US-based organization, and we have offices throughout the US, but in this global environment, we all know we've been working more and more with people that are different time zones, different continents, etc. So those lines start to blur a bit. It's facilitated by lockdowns and concerns about health, etc. So our services are delivered across the continents. We do things like software development, simulation. We do simulation for you or show you how to do it yourself. Data management, which is I think why we're all here today, from the respect that we want to document our designs and have a repository that makes sense and is easy to find things in. That's probably why you're either considering Vault or have already implemented Vault and are looking to eventually upgrade it moving forward to the new releases. We also do things like generative design, unique in the marketplace and in its position to be able to use some AI to help us think of design concepts and offer us design concepts that we may not have considered as human beings, the way that our brains work. So that's a very progressive way that you can apply new technology to existing products. We're having a lot of success in those areas in the marketplace. A redesign on an existing product using generative design and making that product that much better as well as more sustainable at lower cost. We also support you with any CAM industry products that you might be using in your organization as part of your manufacturing process. We also do things like training on the various softwares that we sell and support, as well as development for standards in your organization, where you might be struggling to standardize multiple divisions of your organization to work in a more common and streamlined method. So the agenda today, I've broken it out pretty simply. Preparing for an upgrade for your Vault environment, testing that upgrade to make sure that it works and there are no surprises, and the execution of that upgrade. In addition to that, I'll be throughout this presentation referencing additional considerations, things to think about, things that you might not have considered and might definitely want to include in your update project plan, as well as additional resources and where to find materials that would help you come to terms with and have a better idea of what that upgrade process looks like and how long it might take. Okay, and then also at the end here, I'll open it up to questions, time permitting, and we'll cover any of those types of questions you have. Hopefully, we'll be able to answer those questions that you may have. So to kind of get things started, although the slide that I have shown here is the splash screen for Vault Professional, the process and the steps are very similar, regardless of whether you're using Vault Basic or Vault Professional. All the concepts here apply, regardless of the version that you're using. I will make a quick comment here. There, in the past, there was a kind of a middle ground version of the Vault environment called Vault Workgroup, and Autodesk has determined that there really weren't that many people interested in using that product. There were some great things that were in it, but it was it kind of met some special case uses, or use cases, I should say. And so what they've done is they've essentially merged Vault Professional and Vault Workgroup together. So those that had Workgroup now have access to the functions and features that were in Professional as part of a transition effort. And those of you that had Professional, you essentially, there's no change with the licensing that you got for that particular product. There's nothing to be gained or lost there, as with those folks transitioning from Workgroup to Professional. And if you're on Basic, again, the general function of that work in progress data management tool is being upgraded at all times, and there's new features and functionalities being added. For the most part, when those features and functionalities are added to the Vault Basic environment, that's more to support maybe new functionality that's being delivered in Professional, things of those nature. So the development process on Vault Basic isn't as progressive or aggressive as the development in the Professional version. Well, Basic, really good tool, allows you to do what you need to do. Check in, check out. It's basic functions, again, that work in progress kind of data management without all the release control and revision capabilities that are built into what we used to be Workgroup, and it's now just Professional. So to start the process, we really need to be talking about the preparation for your Vault environment. And again, those workflows, things that need to be done and accommodated, are the same for pretty much the different versions we have. The place where we first want to start is making sure that you're prepared to do that upgrade. And in many cases, that might mean having an additional server in place in your organization that can be used as a testing environment. It is a best practice to have a test vault that mirrors the production Vault environment that you have running. And usually that's provided by a virtual machine or a cloud-based server of some sort. So it's important to have that fallback and that tool, that capability in your pocket, so that when you start to prepare for this upgrade, you can be rest assured that the changes you're going to be making and the steps to make those changes in the upgrading process are predictable, and you'll know exactly how long, what the timing is like. So being able to take a test environment and run through the entire process from beginning to end of your Vault upgrade and get that documented and put those duration of the individual tasks into your project plan. And then it just takes all the stress out of that upgrade and the concerns and questions and what did I forget, and that type of kind of behavior that you might end up in. Nothing worse than being in the middle of a project that needs to be back online on Monday morning for users to come in and connect to, and having something slow down, and that's a surprise. You didn't know that there was going to be a pause, or it was going to be asking a specific question at a particular time during the upgrade process. So again, the best way to do it, and the way we do it, is utilizing a test environment. That also helps support your efforts longer term too. So when patches come out for Microsoft tools, server patches available, you don't know whether it's safe to install the thing. What's going to do to our software? What's going to do to our vault? And so the ability to predict those things in a test environment and then be comfortable and relaxed when deploying them into production is very important. So as such, you want to make sure you're collecting the right information and you've kind of thought ahead on the implementation. So with regards to that, besides a dedicated server, which is really the #1 best thing you can do for yourself if you're planning on upgrading, either having us upgrade you or you upgrading yourself, is to have that test environment in place. It also allows you to make adjustments to the production environment or test adjustments to the production environment when it comes to workflows and things of that nature. So having a dedicated server for the production vault and then a test environment that is closely matched in its CPUs and RAM capabilities, whatever those settings might be, which brings me kind of the next topic here, and that is in the preparation of getting ready to do your upgrade, beyond having a test environment configured for your use, is the knowing what the system requirements are. And I find it surprising how many people would start this process without being sure that the system requirements are being met for the new product that you're putting in place. And so with the improvements that are made by Autodesk in the Vault environment and the underlying technology that Microsoft provides for our operating systems, it makes a lot of sense to make sure that server that you're planning on upgrading the ADMS console on it meets the requirements. So I'll give you a link to the system requirements that you're going to want to make sure that your environment meets or exceeds before you even start doing an upgrade on the system. There's nothing worse than having to back out of an upgrade in the middle and hope that everything goes back to the way it was, to give you time to maybe overcome an issue you didn't know existed. This is really all about planning, it really is, as with most things in our lives. So planning allows you to avoid surprises. As such, that the first step in your planning, beyond checking the system requirements to make sure that the version, the operating system, and supporting applications meet the system requirements for, say, 2023, if you're thinking of updating to 2023, are met. A quick comment about that: the ability to do upgrades in the Vault environment is as it has been for many years now, and that is that the Vault server itself is what gets migrated forward first, and that's because the server has backward compatibility for 2 releases. So Autodesk has committed to keeping backward compatibility so that we don't have to upgrade the Vault server and all of our CAD tools essentially at the same time, which is a kind of a scary big bang thing, is trying to get all that done maybe over a weekend or limited amount of time outage that you might have in your organization. So being able to move the Vault Professional forward to the latest release, knowing it's backward compatible for 2 releases, that gives you that cushion, that comfort, that you don't have to go crazy rushing your way through the upgrade of both the client workstations and the CAD tools that are there and the server and the Vault Professional console. So you would always go with the Vault console first, but this is, of course, after a review of the system requirements to make sure that they're met. So once that's accomplished, then you want to make sure that you have a good solid backup. So if something does go wrong during the process, power outage, lightning strike, whatever it might be, although that stuff sounds silly, it happens, and you're the last person to want to learn the hard way. So having a full and validated Vault backup is the next step in this process of being prepared for the upgrade. And that just always gives you a position to fall back. And it doesn't mean that you just do a backup and then, collect the information about how long it took. That's good information to have. How long does our backup take? Because that's going to contribute to the duration of the outage. But we also need to test that. We also need to know that the backup that's been created is sound. And we do that by, of course, looking at the log files that are related to our Vault server, and then also using that test environment that I described earlier, being able to take that backup and do a restore into a very similar environment so that there's, again, no surprises. We know how long it's going to take, and we know we have a solid backup. And we're validating that backup by reviewing the detail of that backup by restoring it. So you're good and safe if you've got a good sound backup, even if something might go wrong in a one-off, like I say, lightning strike in the middle of an upgrade would be avoidable essentially, or at least minimized. The impact would be minimized, as you could always just take that backup, that current and tested backup, and restore it into the hardware. If it was a lightning strike, it might need to replace the hardware and then restore into the new server. But the reality is that you've got, again, a fallback. What is the saying? How does the saying go? Hoping isn't a plan. So putting a plan in place that will allow you to back out of a tough situation if need be. Things happen and people tend to understand that. If you put yourself in a good position, then the impact of those things that might happen are minimized. So collecting information, making sure that you can do the upgrade in the current hardware and software environment that you have is critical. And then you've got a way to do that in a timely manner and know how long it takes. So the other piece of that backup is we want to make sure that those of you that have been managing Vault Professional for a while, the servers maybe, the backup system is built into the console. And there's a switch there to do a validation that validates the file store data, which are the CAD files in the directory, against the database. And that's known as a validated backup. So there's a switch that allows you to either do a backup with a validation or to do a backup without validation. And I can't imagine why you wouldn't ever want to do a backup without the validation. Because if you're not running through the validation process as the console does, then the logs aren't really that useful in the fact that they won't be recording issues or mismatches between the file store and the database, or the file store and the database. Okay, and if there's any pre-work that can be done here, that's pretty important. I'm going to go ahead and switch screens here a little bit so that we can see a little bit of just kind of one of the resources that I would direct you to. Switch over to that. So this happens to be the help file for, in this case, Vault 2023. And if this screen looks familiar to you, good for you, because that means you've seen it before, you found it, you know it exists. And the steps for backup, we've kind of already talked through and kind of gone through, and that is to make sure you can get a good backup, and that backup is validated. Other preparation that can be done before actually taking the server offline and doing the upgrade would be to prepare the SQL environment. So Microsoft's SQL Server sits behind the Vault as the database utility. And SQL versions come out, and patches for those SQL versions come out. And so one of the things that we want to be sure we're doing is upgrading that SQL first. So once we know we've got a good backup, then we'll go ahead and we'll grab the SQL environment. We'll take a look at SQL Server version that's on the machine. We'll compare that to the system requirements that are provided by Autodesk to make sure that the SQL version that's on the machine is up to snuff. In many cases, in some cases, I should say, the SQL might need an update, might need to be upgraded or patched. And so we want to do those things ahead of time, because those are smaller tasks that can be done with a very small outage, and get those things out of the way so that we're starting to whittle down on the tasks that need to be done within a single outage, maybe over a weekend or a holiday or something of that nature. So one of the things that has to be done is you really have to know that the SQL is at the right patch level and is the right version for fault supports. And sometimes that gets complicated because you might have a server that won't support that version of SQL. Right? So you end up in a situation where you have an upgrade that needs to be done to SQL, but it's going to take you outside of what the Windows operating system supports. So those are certainly things that need to be considered and addressed. So one of the things that beyond that we want to do besides the SQL is make sure that the Vault server and its twin, its digital twin or its physical twin in the form of a test environment will be respected and supported. Got a chat message here I'm going to try to poke at and just see if I can answer a question if there is one. Oh yeah, no, it's maybe that was a question from earlier on. It should be showing. Sure that you can see that. Yeah, so hopefully you saw it switch from the PowerPoint over to the Vault screen or the steps of the Vault upgrade process here. One of the things that we need to keep in mind, this isn't just an island. We're not talking about just a server. We also have clients that need to be respected. So we have a situation where it's very possible that as you upgrade your Vault server, that you're also going to need to install the later versions of the Vault clients. So the CAD users are running applications of certain versions. And if those versions are too far away from that respected or supported 2 releases back, then we'll end up in a situation where everything may have gone great in updating the Vault server, but the clients are dead in the water now because we didn't realize we needed to set aside some time to get those client systems upgraded. And it's not uncommon for there to be an issue there for 2 reasons. One, the installation of that client software might be more complicated than was originally thought, and the duration of getting the upgrades installed can essentially bring engineering to a halt, and no one wants that downtime. So it's important to know. And I even frequently suggest that the Vault, the client software applications, not just the Vault client, but also the CAD tools that are going to be upgraded, they coexist with the existing applications in general. And so what I would normally do is under the umbrella of trying to make things more bite-sized, I might go through and do an upgrade on the client applications before I even start on the server. That way I know that those client applications are already installed on the user's workstations. That's been a small outage, maybe for a user, just the duration it takes to get their computer, the new applications installed on their computer, and then they can go back to work just using the exact same software they had been up until the time we interrupted them and put the new version on. They can go back to work, and we can then redirect our efforts over to the server side. So it's nice to be able to, again, get those things out of the way if you can. Get those smaller bite-size mini outages, if you will, out of the way so that we don't have this one giant big bang that has to occur on both clients and servers. One of the other things that can happen, and we get this phone call frequently, my clients can't connect to the server and getting a message saying there's incompatibility. Well, and that's because there's probably a patch that's been applied to the server and not the clients, or vice versa. It may have been applied to the clients and doesn't match the server. So we have to be careful of, we don't want a patch mismatch to occur between the clients and the servers. When we're doing the updating, it's not just a matter of going from version to version, but there's also updates that are applied in that process. So we need to make sure that we're the patch level on the clients matches the patch level on the server. so that we don't end up in a situation where we've got the clients working great on the CAD side and the servers working great on the server side, the console side, but they can't talk to each other because we've got a mismatch in patching. And that's a frustrating one because it's a simple one, but it tends to be, I guess, kind of easy for people to miss. They overlook it. And then you get kind of tagged with that, oh, the upgrade didn't go well. Well, it was just a patch, but it doesn't make any difference usually at that point. What the reason was, there was an outage, it didn't go well, and next time we do the upgrade, we need it to go better. So just some things to keep in mind, certainly. So what I'm showing you here in the help system is actually, the pathway for the things that you probably should be looking at. And again, we're working through this process and doing it verbally, but this document goes into detail, not just at the high level, but also the lower level steps required. So if I were to take a look at get the validated back, we've got that all taken care of. This creation of the backup after the upgrades of the clients. So, but it's interactive here, and we get to see the information detailed about each of those steps and what it takes to accomplish those steps. I'm using this as a reference. So hopefully you don't see this as an effort to just like read the manual to you. I'm using it as a supporting document that you're going to need access to anyway in this particular environment before you consider doing your upgrade. And don't feel bad if it's kind of an interesting situation that we get ourselves in sometimes. We've got an IT group that's really good and they know the servers, and we're maybe the CAD manager and we're really good with the CAD tools. We know what needs to be done there, but there's kind of sometimes a gap in between the two, right? This is a unique product that not everyone has had access to, and sometimes IT guys feel like, well, this shouldn't be a problem. We'll just take care of this server side on this thing for you, and you can upgrade as the CAD manager. You guys can go ahead and just upgrade your workstations. Don't diminish the kind of the specialty nature of this product. There is a server component to it as well as a CAD component, and usually it's kind of a rare situation that you would have somebody that was savvy in both arenas. And that's kind of where you can leverage us, jump in. We kind of straddle the fence on a lot of these areas. So I think at this point, I've gone through with kind of a high level overview, and I've provided just a general starting spot and the steps that are required for a Vault backup or a Vault upgrade. I would like to open this call to any of you that might have questions. So is there something specific about the upgrade beyond what I've shown here and talked about that maybe you have concerns about or would like a little clarification on? So if you wanted to, you go ahead and just unmute yourself, and you can ask that question. So I'm going to take a look in the chat here to see if there's anything that has been posted up to chat that I haven't seen, addressed in any way. Okay. Well, if anything comes up, let me know. I'm going to continue on and share a little bit more information. I didn't want to cut us too short on the Q&A at the end, so that was kind of my purpose for stepping in there. Some of the other things that you're going to want to consider is, are you planning on going to a new piece of hardware? So it's pretty common for maybe even the reason that you've been asked to do an upgrade, or there's an interest in having an upgrade done on the Vault, is because the IT is maybe modernizing the server environment in general, right? We want to get the new Windows Server operating systems online for all of our systems internally in our organization. The server that your Vault is sitting on is part of that process, and we want to upgrade it along with all the others and bring it up to our internal standard for Microsoft operating systems. Security is becoming more and more of a consideration for those types of upgrades as the newer versions of the operating systems come out and they are more secure. So some of the things that we want to make sure we're talking about here is that if you're bringing a new operating system online, it usually means you're also bringing a new server online to support that operating system, which gives us a unique potential here. If I'm going to be given a new server and it's going to have a new OS on it, wouldn't it be nice if I could take care of some of those tasks on that new server prior to even touching the production environment? So in a lot of cases when we're doing this, there'll be a situation where there'll be a new server being spun up. It's typically an imaged system. It's going to be a virtual machine, not necessarily a physical server. That's more and more with the virtualization of our servers. And also it's very possible that that new server will be cloud-based. So maybe Azure or Amazon is being going to be leveraged to take those servers and put them in the cloud where we don't have to worry about the management, stacking and racking of that hardware internally. Maybe you don't even have an internal IT group that takes care of those things. You've got a partner that's just comes in when you need help on things like this. So that's a situation where we get access to that server. It's prepared for us. It's dedicated for us as far as the Vault environment goes. And I could do a lot of pre-work on that machine. I could go ahead and install the target system, right? If I'm going to upgrade to 2023, well, I'm gonna leave the production in place as long as I can. And what that means is I can go to work on that new server I'm being given and go ahead and put the ADMS console for Vault 2023 on that machine, test it, make sure it's working correctly, and I can do that all in a very comfortable pace without rush and concern. Once that system's up and running, then we can start turning our efforts toward that upgrade process. So it's very helpful if you do and can find yourself in that position, if you can go ahead and just take advantage of that server ahead of time before you even consider doing the work on the server side of things. That'll give you an opportunity not just to take the existing environment and upgrade it, but also do some testing along the way. I can go all the way through the process. In that situation, I can go through the process of the entire migration. So I can do a backup on the server of the existing environment, and I can restore that into the new server I've been given that I've provisioned with the Vault data management server for 2023. So that can all be prepared, and I can get information, the details on how long that's going to take. So I can identify and I can tell people how long the outage is going to be. We know now that it takes this amount of time to copy that backup from one server to the next and do the restore and the migration that has to occur following that restore operation. So you're really, I'm really kind of coming at it from both ends and working toward the middle. Right, I'm doing everything I can to plan ahead. I'm also doing everything I can to provision the hardware that we're going to end up working on. And it really compresses the middle of that process, which is the actual migration itself, which is at that point just not even that much work and won't take that long. So if you can work both ends toward the middle in a process like this, certainly it's helpful. And if you wanted to use your test vault for that purpose, one more good reason to have a test vault. So even if you don't have a new piece of hardware that's being brought online that you have the luxury of working on, you've got a test server that you can do the backup off of production, restore it into test, and again, acquire the information about the questions that will be asked, the durations of the different tasks that occur, during the migration process and the upgrade. Are there any questions about kind of that process, compressing it? It's kind of a Oreo cookie, right? I'm pushing from both sides in order to get the work done, or to reduce the amount of work that needs to be done during an outage. Some other things that we need to be conscious of, if we tend to have an IT bent on this call, then we just need to know for a fact that there's somebody in the organization that can handle the application specific resources. And what I mean when I say that is, if you're using Inventor, for example, as your design tool, 3D design tool of choice, then what will need to happen is during the process of doing the upgrade of the Vault console and the Vault clients on the systems, the resources, things like templates and the styles libraries and the materials library that are part of what makes Inventor so good at what it does, those things need to be upgraded as well. So there's a migration that needs to be done in order to take those CAD resources that Inventor uses, templates and styles, et cetera, and move them to the newer working version of the CAD tool. And that's something that tends to get forgotten. It's kind of an aside after the fact, but I can't count the number of situations where that's been kind of diminished, and oh, we'll worry about that later. That's, we're more worried about getting the upgrade on the CAD and the server side done, only to find that there's really not anybody on site that has a really good understanding of not only how to do that, but even where those resources are stored in the organization. So are they on a shared folder on the server? Are those resources installed on each of the users' workstations? What does this process look like to make sure that the entire process of upgrading is accommodated and is assigned at the beginning of the process? Who on site is capable of doing that? And if there isn't anybody, or if they fib to you and tell you they can, and then they realize they can't, it'd be good to have another resource lined up that might be able to step in and take that on, so that you don't have this weird little thing at the end that's keeping your CAD team from getting back to work. And that will be identified in the organization as well. They weren't working. They weren't working. And yeah, we know it was just a few of these supporting documents that needed to be upgraded, but that took half a day, and it was something we didn't expect. So those are a couple of the surprises that you can run into. Other things that I would make sure we had in place before doing an upgrade is Sql Management Studio. And because SQL Server is the engine that sits behind the database in Vault environment, we want to use the Microsoft tool, Sql Management Studio, that helps us access and manage that SQL installation. So if you are moving from a older server to a newer one, you want to make sure that you've got the Sql Management Studio installed on that new system. One of those things that can be done ahead of time. And in this case, very simply, that computer's completely empty. There's nothing on it. And so we can easily install that piece of software ahead of time. So consider that. Which version of Sql Management Studio do you need on the system? Do you have one computer that is not only hosting the data management server console, but also the SQL and the file store? Are all of those components installed on the same computer? In some cases, that would be the scenario. And you might want to look into maybe doing an upgrade of the SQL Management Studio that might be on that single dedicated app server. So SQL Management Studio, for whatever reason, that thing takes a long time to install, and there's nothing worse than needing it and it not being there and ready for you, and then you got to stop and find it on the Microsoft website and download it and extract it, and next thing you know, it's 25 minutes later and you finally got SQL Management Studio installed. So just again, some things to keep in mind that we run across that is part of our checklist that we use when we do upgrade, and even in many cases, to a new deployment of a Vault environment. The other things that tend to get forgotten, and this is even probably more common, you need to have some service accounts that are being used to manage things like the automated backup for Vault. And so in a lot of cases, somebody lost that service account password. They don't know what it is. Everything's working. It's not that it's been disabled, it's that it's just working along, but no one knows what the password is. So that's something that will certainly stop you dead in your tracks if you don't have that the ability to put your hands on that quickly or overcome that somehow. So you need just, again, it's one of the resources or some of the resources that are used. I've got a IT guy gave me a nice dedicated service account for us to use so that that backup can be launched at night, unmanned in an automated way. But somebody doesn't know what the password is. Or you've got multiple service accounts and you don't know which of those service accounts is for managing the Vault backup. So think about the Windows administrator credentials as well as the service accounts that might be supporting the Vault environment. I already mentioned the templates and styles, content center libraries, material libraries on the CAD side of things. Are there any questions about anything I've discussed or that we've listed as a potential issue or any of, in this case, this particular resource? There's another resource that I want to share with you. It's related to the SQL upgrade, its compatibility. Let me get that up for us here and I'll switch over to it. So, I mean, the question would be, how do I know if my SQL is supported in the upgrade environment that I'm starting to work in? So give me a second here. I'll bring that up. Got that static image of that. See if I can switch over. Bear with me here. So we've got there. This is what I was looking for. So this graphic can help you determine if the upgrade path that you're looking for is supported not only by the Autodesk products, but by Microsoft. So you can see here, we've got the Vault releases here, vertical axis, and then the SQL versions on the horizontal axis here. And we've got some color coding here as well as some product names. So notice that the information here, these are the SQL versions. So that would be 2012 Service Pack 3 SQL. And where we're looking for the sweet spot here is to try to go as far as we can in our upgrade in one shot, but not overextend and end up in an unsupported environment. So we want to make sure that the supported in production is the green circles that we want to kind of keep an eye on, and supported for migration only. We wouldn't put it into production that way, but it would be a lily pad, so to speak, that we would hit on our way to the final target. And so you can start to find the sweet spot. We can go from this version of SQL up to 2014 Service Pack with CU4 in this case, and it won't over exceed what's supported by the environment. So we want to stay kind of away from the yellow if we can, although we can spend a little time there on our way to the green if we have to. And you can see that this graphic has been updated for the latest releases. Autodesk is good about maintaining those resources so that we know, and we can plot the appropriate path that will work for Microsoft's operating system, Microsoft SQL, and Vault. All of these are components that need to work together and be upgraded successfully in order to get from where you are maybe to where you want to be. And this gives us a bit of a roadmap that we can use to help us plot that. Again, this part becomes part of the project plan. We know exactly what version of SQL we're on. Maybe, in order to get where we want to go, well, we may want to upgrade SQL first, as I mentioned and shown in the previous graphic. We've got maybe we do an upgrade to SQL Service Pack 1, and it lets us go a little further up the stack with fewer efforts, less effort. So this is another good resource. And again, you saw me find it just by selecting the navigation panel here, and specifically for the task of upgrading SQL. You can see here that we've got the phase 3. This is the 2 releases back kind of a checkpoint, if you will. So making sure that you know that which version you're on and which version you're going to go to. Sometimes if we waited a while to do an upgrade, you kind of don't benefit from that, because you still kind of have to go through those steps. If it's more than 2 releases, you still have to hit that interim. So you can't just wait to upgrade and have it go faster, because the 2 releases between still have to be hit. So something to keep in mind. Hopefully you weren't under that impression and have been waiting to do an upgrade because you want to just do one of them. What it's going to mean is that one upgrade is going to take longer. You don't really gain anything by waiting. So the outages are shorter and more predictable, less effort if you can do every 2 years at the most. So stay within that 2 years. You don't want to get out into 3 and 4, because then you end up having to hit lily pads on multiple products, SQL, as well as Microsoft operating systems and Vault, which again, you end up in more of a big bang scenario. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions again. If anybody has anything, please throw it in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself, and we can have a dialogue about what you might want to know beyond what I've shared. If you don't have anything, you're going to be departing. I'm going to say thank you for attending. Hopefully you found it helpful and encouraging. Right? Don't be terrified. Just a little planning goes a long way in these upgrades, and we're more than happy to help you with them if it's something that you really just aren't comfortable doing on your own, or you don't have an internal team that is comfortable with participating in the upgrade or are part of the upgrade. That said, I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll stick on the call here for just a couple more minutes to see if anybody has any additional questions. Thanks for your attention and your attendance. I appreciate it. Time is money these days, so we recognize that and value your time as we do our own. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.